Hi, everybody. Welcome to Woman Up. My name's Leah, and I'm joined, as usual, by Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hi, Leah. How are you today?
Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
Another week closer.
Sorry,
Another week closer.
another week closer. Yeah, scary. Um, Today we welcome along Nerissa, a mother from Queensland, who, at the centre of her life, is her beautiful toddler daughter. As the wonderful mother she is, Nerissa moves through the challenging and often demanding task of raising a child, guided by a strong sense of duty and care, which is why she speaks out about the dangers of gender ideology as they relate to many different aspects of life. She's become engaged in a worrying social issue that affects families across Australia: the increasing movement to incorporate gender identity ideology into various aspects of everyday life, including legislation. Nerissa's concerns have recently become focused on the impact of this insane ideology within childcare centres and early learning environments. She fears, as many of us do, that the swift normalisation of the ideas around gender madness will influence the foundational stages of education and the development for children, including her own. This concern has not only made her a vigilant parent, but also an active and appreciated voice in the resistance. Nerissa represents a growing number of parents who are seeking to understand the worrying trend we now see that attempts to embed gender identity ideology within early childhood education in Australia. And I've said it a million times, and I still can't believe I'm saying those sentences, but they want to push gender identity and sexualities onto our children. So this is a concerted effort, we feel, to push this ideology onto our kids in the very places that we would expect them to be safe and nurtured. Crazy times. But Nerissa, how did you first fall down this rabbit hole, and what made you look into this?
The childcare component or
Yeah, the
just the whole,
childcare stuff.
the childcare stuff. So yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago and I'm considering putting my nearly 3-year-old into a couple of days of daycare in the new year. And this is a parent who, considering I know what I know about gender ideology being pushed by the Queensland Education Department, like this is a parent who has considered homeschooling already because I'm just so against my kid being exposed to this nonsense. So you can imagine my just disgust and dismay when I'm going onto I think it was like an online portal after I'd done a tour of one of the early learning centres to go onto a wait list. And the questions that I had to answer on behalf of my daughter. So some were compulsory, some were optional. The compulsory question was gender, male or female. Then there was 3 optional questions, which I have massive issues with. And one was gender at birth, gender identity, and pronouns. So this is so upsetting because this means that these early learning centres, so this is from birth to 5, children from birth to 5 years old at these centres. So for one, they're encouraging and supporting and promoting parents to socially and transition children of that age. So between birth and 5 years old, they're going to support that gender identity has unquestionably been put in the kid's mind because of the parents or being exposed to other components of queer theory and transgender theory and gender theory. But not only that, so a little boy who the parent has decided is not a little boy will be enrolled into that early learning centre as a she, her, and then the other children, probably unbeknownst to their parents, will be forced to participate in and perpetuate a lie. It's just unbelievable. Like, it's not unbelievable when you know what we know, but it's so upsetting.
it's like, it's not surprising, but it still shocks me when I read about this kind of stuff. The
exactly.
the frameworks that we've been reading about as well, which is from birth to 5 years, the early years learning framework for Australia, which is the framework describes the principles, practice, and outcomes which enhance young children's learning from birth to 5 years of age, as well as their transition to school. And it's all in there if you read the framework. And it's just, it's quite sinister the way they do it, because it looks as though it's very nice for if you don't know what you're reading. But like you say, you're forcing a whole group of kids to lie from birth to 5.
Yeah. Not to mention your, as we know, the affirmation model, as an environment, you're affirming a delusion in a child, which is child abuse.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you go into where all this stuff comes from, unsurprisingly, it's Headspace, Beyond Blue. I mean, we know Headspace is just hugely captured. So the website bu.edu.au is where a lot of this stuff is found, and it started back in 2017. And if you look at some of the practitioners who are working in these early learning centres and you look at their bios, one of the first words for many of them that describes them is activist.
Yeah.
And if you, that's...
They openly admit that they're activists.
Yeah.
Well, I think the majority of the population would look at that and think, oh, great, they're Greenpeace and they're saving the environment, and they don't make the connection that these people are trans rights activists or trans activists or gender identity ideology extremists. That's what activism is in this circumstance. And they talk about gender expression being hairstyle, clothing, name, which is just personality. Like how you wear your hair and what clothing you choose to wear there's nothing to do with your gender. It's just your personality.
I have 2 children myself, both are boys, and one of them is grown up and the other is nearly grown up. And the younger one was a train between age 2 and 4. And I am not exaggerating. That child was a train. He was a purple train specifically. And he called his body parts train parts. Like, not all the time. He also knew he was a boy, but it was an immersive fiction of the sort that I've since met other parents whose children were horses, they were dinosaurs, they were a lot of trains. He would say, I want purple paint today, when he wanted to put on a purple T-shirt. He would call his hands his buffers. He would walk around the house in straight lines, and he would walk into walls. And then he would reverse out and he would change the points and he would walk a different direction. And he was in this wonderful, imaginative world. And I was really sad in a way when he was around 4 and this just naturally ended. Just one day he wasn't doing it so much anymore. Children are like this. The idea that you could know all your life that you are something that you actually are not, that's fine when you're little. Grown-ups don't have to lie to you and say it's true. I mean, I didn't spend my time saying to my son, you're not really a train. Like, I played along. But I didn't go trying to give him coal, put him in the sidings at night or something. These people, they're just bonkers.
I read that some of the staff that have been trained since 2017 into this, or indoctrinated into this ideology to then teach it to these young kids, in the staff training, they've used the gender unicorn diagram, the one? Like, it's just so...
Well, I saw from last
depressing.
year, around this time, October 2022, the Early Childhood Australia National Conference, there was a noticeable interest in body, gender and sexuality diversity. BGSD. BGSD interests are relevant to all early childhood education and care settings. How can sexuality diversity be applicable to birth to 5-year-olds? How is this here?
It really just exposes the agenda, doesn't it? And that they want to start as early as possible to groom these kids.
To brainwash them, yeah.
We had to really look for this stuff. I mean, there's parents out there that have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Or like I said to you, Leah, previously, the parents I speak to, they know, but they just don't understand they don't understand. They're time poor, they're busy, they're buying the propaganda, they're not looking at it with any kind of critical thinking lens. So it's just the whole be kind brigade, and but it's like, just dig a little deeper. This is removing all rights of the female child to any spaces devoid of male bodies. Like that's what this is promoting. Like girls, teenage girls, no female only space anymore. And fully intact males who adopt a female gender identity, which is a made up fantasy, can then go into these female only spaces and undress in front of these young girls. And that's apparently all about inclusion.
That's why they want to start so early, is to normalise it.
Normalize it, yeah.
And then they'll have a generation of kids that they've groomed, basically,
Yes.
and that's what they want. And then all generations that will come, and then they'll have a society like the one they are aiming for.
Yeah, the child safeguarding completely gone out the window. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what you do.
It needs to be, people need to understand it in very clear terms, that the implementation of self-ID, so that's where you can choose what gender you want to be legally recognised by in law, which is coming in all over Australia. The implementation of that removes any single-sex spaces or services, even for children. And people really need to understand that, because this is...
Yeah.
And people say, oh, well, you're calling trans people, predators. No. This opens the door for any man who wants to come in to your daughter's or son's personal space and completely violate their boundaries.
It's also a concern because they're criminalising parents raising concerns. And if we look at what's happening, I think in Victoria, where there's a couple of mothers that are being quite active in letting other parents know about how it's no longer safe for their children to go to the toilet, because what they've done is they've combined it all. And now what is it that they'll be charged, or they've been threatened that they'll be charged with stalking, and for just
by the Department of Education. Yeah.
You've been threatened by the Education Department with criminal action for speaking out on this issue. What concerns you about gender-neutral toilets for little kids?
I think the biggest thing for me as a parent is that we've always taught our children to protect themselves, to speak up when they feel uncomfortable. And our children have come to us with very legitimate concerns and just a real feeling of unease since these toilets have been introduced into the school. And as parents, it's our job to speak up for our children. And we have done so. And I've gone through every correct channel possible. And I have been blatantly ignored, dismissed, sometimes even belittled. And just nobody seems to care that our kids are uncomfortable with these new toilets. And we are so aware of the need for safe spaces for gender diverse students. We're not against unisex toilets. We just want a safe space for boys, girls and unisex facilities. And we want them separate because we believe that every child deserves the right to privacy and dignity. And boys and girls are just so different. Like their needs are so different. And I just feel like that's being ignored. Apparently it went out in a newsletter about 2 years ago that there would be new toilets, there would be unisex toilets, and we were assured that they would still be separate boys and girls toilets. There's even a plan of what the toilets were going to be like, and they've turned out nothing like that. So we feel very misled and very lied to. And I don't know I don't know why they're doing this, and I don't know why there's been so much secrecy around it.
And what do people of Clifton Springs and Drysdale think about it?
It's so divided because there are so many people who, like us, passionately loved our primary school. It was such a welcoming, beautiful community. This has caused so much division amongst all of us because you've got parents with true, genuine concerns, and then you've got parents that just don't realise that there are problems with this.
Yep.
So it's caused so much division. I'm going to go as
and I've got to say this.
hate.
I mean, it's a brutal reality nowadays. I mean, you get little girls in grade 6 getting a period. It's not something that happens when they're in secondary school anymore. And I mean, it's challenging enough for a child, but to manage that in grade 6, even grade 5, sharing a toilet with boys, pretty tough.
Really tough. And not only that, you've got 5-year-old little girls and boys who are now sharing a space with grade 6 boys and girls. And to me, there's a real risk there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of children that have trauma backgrounds. There's a lot of children who believe that inappropriate behaviour is normal.
Yeah.
And I just feel like there's a huge risk that seems to be mismanaged and hasn't been looked at properly.
And all they've done is what anyone's done throughout history when they're opposing an issue. It's not stalking, but somehow under Victorian law it is, because they're giving out pamphlets.
Yeah.
So what are they?
I wasn't sure. Yeah, that's the Clifton Park Gardens, or I think that's the name of the school.
Yeah, the primary school.
And rightly so, these mothers are up in arms because their daughters have no single-sex bathrooms anymore. And we know from just common sense, but also from what we've seen happening since self-ID has rolled out across the world, with the Western world, there's a spike in male on female violence in these areas, in these spaces. So they've got every right to be concerned about the loss of single-sex space for their daughters. But instead of being supported in wanting to safeguard their girls, they're being persecuted. And, the Victorian Education Department threatening to have them charged with stalking. That MP came out against it, didn't she, Sue? What's her
Sarah
name?
Henderson.
And as we saw from the rally at Clifton Springs, many, many parents are concerned about this issue. And as Chelsea has said, no one is objecting to a unisex toilet. But at Clifton Springs Primary School, boys and girls are being forced to share the same bathroom facilities. And with boys and girls particularly, going through puberty and all the challenges that involves, this is very, very compromising for their dignity, for their privacy. Some children are actually not going to the toilet. And so I'm outraged that the Department of Education has threatened both Chelsea and another mum, Jessica, with criminal charges for stalking as a result of distributing a flyer about this rally. It is absolutely outrageous. I've called on the Education Minister to withdraw these threats from his department, to apologise and to reinstate separate boys and girls facilities at this school. And so far we have heard nothing, and it's absolutely not good enough, Peter.
Yes. Sarah Henderson.
Yes.
And she's Liberal Party. So once again, we never see any left politicians standing up to this or voicing any opposition whatsoever. They just go along with the party line. I know that's because that's Labor Party policy, but I'm so sick of just screaming into the abyss. And we've apparently got some Labor politicians who are closet TERFs and secret TERFs, and they know what's happening and they think it's terrible. Where are they? Like, have us grow a spine, how can they watch this happen and
So
just stay silent?
What would happen then if they did come out and say something? Would they be fired?
No, well, they could be from the party, but they'd still hold their seat, because when they win a seat, it's a person that ran for the seat. So they become it's like Moira in Victoria.
Moira.
Yeah. So, they can get rid of you from the party. And I mean, any politician at any time who holds a seat can resign from the party and then stand as an independent. So it's not as if they will lose their seat
Immediately. Okay.
But they're probably worried about if they wanted to run for the seat, that they wouldn't have the money and resources behind them. But the thing is, particularly ones that have been in a seat for quite a long time, the people will stand with them, not with the party. So, you know, it's and then it gives them freedom to say what they think as an independent. But with Labor, they can't do that. They've got to toe the party line. So, you know, when you think about it, if they came out, I can understand probably their fear because they've always had the backing of Labor. But I don't think it's as great as what they sort of envisage it to be, particularly on this issue, because so many people, it's not popular with the public. But you know, we don't have really, we haven't had one Labor MP come out, I don't think. One.
No.
State or federally.
No.
And, you know, it's I guess it's time. When do they decide to come out and then fight against it?
I know. What has to happen? Like, how much more of this, you know, there's, I guess, again, it's mainstream media blackout, not reporting on it as widely as or at all as an ABC being totally captured. But, I mean, it'd be difficult to argue ignorance now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. The time has gone for that. Like, you can't say that you don't know what's going on. It's
they all know now, the politicians.
Well, there's been so many of us contacting them as well.
Yeah.
Who have been blocked. So why are they blocking us? I mean, they know that we've got something to say. Let's get back to the people pushing this, and involved with the early years learning framework for Australia is a person named Sam Newbury. She, they. And I need to find some more information on this character because something doesn't feel right. Hearing the inspirational Sam Newbury, she, they, from Clarendon Children's Centre, share her story of exploring sexuality in early childhood spaces. Samantha Newbury, she, they, offered practical ways to explore, discuss, and embed gender diversity in early years education through language and literacy. They explained how this can be done at all ages, in a baby room, a toddler room, and a kindergarten room. Sam recommended numerous gender diversity books for the different age groups, activities such as a clothes rack, and ways to talk to children about pronouns.
They just don't need to hear any of this rubbish. I mean,
it's just got no basis in reality. It's, as we know, it's a theory, it's an ideology, it's not scientific. There's no factual evidence to support gender identity at all. It's made up.
But I don't have one. They're the easiest audience to convince because they're so
100%. They're so impressionable. Yeah, they'll believe you because they're children.
That kid's cartoon, SpongeBob, they're all sponges. And then if they see, you know, this kid that comes in and he's a they, them, and obviously he will be coached with all the correct things to say under this ideology. So he will then talk to the other kids, and then they've got parents that have got to deal with the issue of them saying, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. And so if parents don't stop it now, this is what they'll be dealing with.
Yeah. I mean, if you told those children that they could be a dinosaur, 100% they're going to rock up and be identifying as a dinosaur because you've told them that you can be a dinosaur, really, in reality.
Yeah. It's scary. And then you've got parents.
Terrifying.
This, like with homeschooling, the majority of parents can't homeschool because they've got to work. So, and then they're sending them into an environment that they know this is going to happen. So how do they stop it? And then governments make it illegal, like even these two women about the toilets, threatening them. They'll be charged with stalking for just exercising their democratic rights.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It really
It's
is
grim.
scary. It's scary. And you two have got young children that are going to be exposed to this. How do you combat that?
Yeah,
Well-
it's very hard. We've got a few local autogynephiles in my area, and I walked past one of them in the shopping centre again the other day, and he's got his fake boobs and he's got his high heels on and he's got his dress and his handbag, and he totters past at the supermarket
Mm.
and his bad makeup. And I just said, no different to blackface. How offensive. And I hope he heard me. Other people heard me. It is,
Totally.
you know, but we don't have an issue with the men wearing the dress. You go ahead, wear the dress, wear the high heels, but don't demand that we pretend that you're a woman, and don't demand that children pretend that you're a woman and that you are anything like a woman when we know that transgender males retain male pattern criminality. And if anything, in prisons, there's a disproportionate number of trans-identified males who are in prison for sexual crimes.
Yeah.
So
it's more than double. It's more than double than the general male population in Queensland. It's even higher. I think in the UK, it's 50% of them are in there for serious sexual assault. USA, it's 60%. And then they're trying to say, if a man says he's a woman, they're not a danger.
And I'd quite like to know if I'm sending my child to school and she's being taught by an autogynephile.
Yes.
I'd quite like that information.
But they won't give it to you voluntarily.
Well, no, because he would be just a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then knowing what they're going to be teaching your child. But even these kids that are coming in and they're told they're not the sex that they were born as, they're also going to be speaking to other kids. So, you know, schools were prevented from doing that with religion, and this is a religious cult.
Yeah.
But you can't force religion on a child, but they can force this on children.
So did you say that this was from 2017 embedded within this, or is that just when you noticed it?
Well, around then, I think it's when they became heavily involved with Headspace and yeah, but like if you look at the BU, it was from 2017 and it was let me see if I've still got it open. It was like their evidence base or something. I looked at something, and like I looked through that and there was actually no mention of gender. This was in 2017. But then 2018, you start seeing these gender expansive practices, which is what Samantha Newbury was doing within a childcare setting. It was in South Melbourne. So again, woke capital of Australia, Melbourne, after Brisbane maybe now.
I just can't understand how someone can promote exploring sexuality in early childhood spaces, and this was at a conference.
No one say,
and no one standing up saying, "Excuse me."
Yeah, because they're all sheep, Leah. They're all sheep and don't want to be seen to be uncool and
but this is at the expense. But this is at the expense of the most vulnerable population. If they can't protect children, what are they doing in that profession? Get them out.
That's it, isn't it? I agree. But in this, these people have been through universities that have pushed queer theory. So women's studies and actual feminist studies were taken over years ago in university and academia by gender studies, and that's queer theory. And
so
queer theory, as we know.
So in other words, brainwashing. That's what they've been doing.
Oh, 100%.
Because any normal, rational thinking person can hear it and go, what the fuck? This is wrong. But these people, these young people come out and they're completely brainwashed. It's like it's like another brick in the wall. You know, they're just
when you're in a lecture and you've got a professor who's teaching you something, they are in a position of authority. And when I was at uni in 2016, I was listening to lectures, and I was in seminars where they were talking about Lady Dick and all that kind of thing, and I was thinking, this is ridiculous. I don't know if I actually said to the teacher or to the tutor, this is absolutely ridiculous. So at the end of the day, I'm in a classroom full of 30 other people, and we had an autogynephile in our group too, who would just cause mayhem if you said anything against what was going on. So one thing I learned from doing that degree was, you as a human, you can't say how you're going to react in any situation. These people might be thinking to themselves, what the fuck are they talking about? they don't want to be the odd one out to stand up and say something. It's human psychology is crazy like that.
I guess in
and it's also the social conditioning too, of women specifically, women in society, to be kind and not make a fuss and all that shit.
But in 2016, Leah, it was all quite new. So you know, a lot of people could be thinking that, but if it was now, if you're in that classroom now, what would you be doing?
Wow, yeah, that would be different. But yeah, but then I don't know. I can't say how I would react.
It's always really heartening when you see young people that are saying this is bullshit, you know, when they're standing up to it. And we are seeing quite a lot of young kids, even in primary school, like the burning of the progress flags in a school in Sydney, 50 of them. So, I mean, that is one massive statement to make. And if kids like that are pushing back, even Leah, when we were doing the protests outside of Queensland Parliament, and those Year 6 kids are walking down the street, their teachers going ballistic, they're giving us the thumbs up.
Yeah.
You know, behind the back.
It's encouraging.
It is encouraging, and there must be a lot of TERF mums out there.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that makes it so hard, because, a lot of the main opposition to it are mothers who are busy being mothers.
Yeah.
We can't just take to the streets and mass protest at the drop of a hat, because we have responsibilities as mothers, as caregivers, or we work as well as doing that. So
they've got to be well orchestrated protests, you know, giving people time, and we've got to don't do it for the kids.
But this whole movement preys on the fact that it knows the very people that will stand against it don't have the time to.
But when it's your child, though, if we don't break this for the children, and breaking it for the children will break this whole thing. You know, as we all know that the autogynephiles need these kids to do this, to validate them. And, you know, it's like their golden ticket. The kids are their golden ticket. If they can completely groom this generation of kids, they're set.
And you've got Debbie Hayton as well, who I think is a teacher. And you know, I'm just not happy about men like that being involved at all. I feel like he's still pushing. I mean, imagine I wouldn't be happy if I had Debbie Hayton teaching my child.
No. Have anyone like that teaching children, even if they are gender critical or claim.
How can you be gender critical if you're still using women's spaces and you're still pretending to be a woman? I just feel like that it has to be a strict no from me. What do you think you're going to do, Nerissa, with schooling?
Well, I don't know. I did email the Early Learning Centre that had the gender identity and gender at birth and pronouns in the questionnaire thingy, enrolment questionnaire, I think it was. And I just asked for a list of books that would be read to children in the centre. And I didn't get a list of books. They came back with a bit of a non-answer, which I think was
really.
We've got, what was it? We've got a large library of books, and it changes or something like that. So I wasn't overly happy with that response. I'll see if I can.
Flag, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. Trying to remember exactly what it was. Here. There are a variety of different books. To list them all would be difficult as they swap out on a regular basis. In that age group, they would be picture books with animals, colours, numbers, etc.
Well, I guess you could go back and say, look, if there's anything in relation to gender ideology, I'm not giving my permission for that to be exposed to my child.
Or else when I go to like have a proper tour and meet and greet, if I do go to that next step, I can ask to look at the books, which would be on the shelves, and I could just have a look through and see if there's anything of concern.
I think I saw Rachel Wong tweeting that an alphabet book for kids. A is for asexual or something. B is for bisexual. T is for trans.
Yeah, so exactly. Perfect example. Would that be included in that list that she gave me? Books, numbers, colours, animals.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You don't have to go to the public library now and look in the kids section. If you're a mum with a young child and you might go to the library with your kid and you look in the kids section and it's just like, why is this here? I saw one the other day in my local library, Hayden's Pronoun Party. And I'd seen it before and I hide them. Whenever I find them in the kids section, because they're apparently kids' books, I hide them. Because regardless of whether you think it's all about, parental supervision when you're in the library and it being a place of learning, so we're not policing anything and we're just making the information available, those kind of books are going to be influencing children and also lying to them about reality, because in the book it talks about how Hayden doesn't feel like a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
He's neither.
What's going to happen to these?
Not possible.
What about these kids in these early childhood centres? If they start to teach this rubbish and the child goes, well, no, they're smart enough to know that this isn't right. How are they going to react to that child? Are they then going to, this could damage them psychologically too, because it's going to be treated like a criminal, like adults are. What sort of a treatment? Are they going to be punished because they state reality that they won't buy into this ideology? It's just, I just don't. And also with the books, that's a cop-out, because with computers, all they do is scan books now. So that they've got a list,
a catalogue of what books are in the
and that's all they have to do, because they scan it. They could provide a list. That's just a copy.
I agree. And like you said about what happens to children that question this nonsense, if the kids have gender critical parents or a gender critical influence in their lives, which gender critical is just, our brains are in reality. You haven't been lost to this cult. We've seen it in the UK where a student stood up to a teacher who was trying to say that there's 27 genders or whatever he was saying, and the young boy was just saying, no, that's wrong, there's male and female, that's it. And he videoed it, and he was reprimanded and punished, and it was just horrible the way he spoke to the child. It just breaks your heart. To think that a little 5-year-old or 4-year-old might get reprimanded, exactly, like, it's just heartbreaking.
Ostracized, and
ostracized,
can be quite
punished, reprimanded in front of other children, and made to feel bad for simply following their intuition, which is that's a girl, not a boy, or vice versa.
Well, there should be permission from the parents to say, when they're teaching this rubbish. I remember when I was at school, which was a very long time ago, but with religious instructions, the parents had to give approval for any religious instructions. And if the parents didn't give approval, you were not in the class when it was taught.
Yeah, you could opt out. You could opt out of that class.
And this should be the same thing, is that They should be open and honest with the parents, and if the parents say no, then they have other activities and take the kids out.
Problem is, it's not condensed into one top lesson.
No, that's
everywhere.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Everything.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
exposed to it constantly.
And no one would really
Yeah.
care if it didn't result in children literally being medicalized at the end, like after the process of social transition. Then no one would really care. If this is to fund a business, an industry.
Yeah.
Like, why do people? How have people forgotten that this is how pharmaceutical industry works? Get people in, get them young, get them hooked. Like, all these things are still relevant.
Yeah.
And it's our children that are going to be paying the price.
Yeah.
It's really scary and it's really depressing.
How many parents don't understand what's going on? How many parents are going to be sending their little kids to daycare centres and not realise that they're going to be indoctrinated? And then, you know, their child comes home and starts going, oh, I'm a boy. And they'll be going, what? And by then...
Especially when we know that at that age to try on, I guess, different identities is 100% part of childhood development. So it's really malicious to then attack them at this age, which is what they're doing. Because children, if you look at any decent evidence-based childhood development stuff, this is what kids do at this age. They might decide that they're a boy. It doesn't mean they're transgender.
No, it's just part of growing up.
It's just part of growing up. It's just playing. It's dress-ups.
Yeah.
We've all seen young kids that have been socially transitioned, you know, by parents. You know, it's a really scary time. It's just affecting every level of society. It's just embedded everywhere.
Yeah.
And there's such an enormous cost for kids. They're the ones that are going to be medicalised for life. They'll be having the operations and, you know, and then the parents having to, it's a minefield for parents that are unaware of what's going on. And those parents that are brave enough to stand up to it, they're threatened with prosecution.
Yeah, you know, some of the parents we know who've had experience or continue to have experience with ROGD kids, and even if they have come out the other side prior to deciding to surgically modify their body, it's just they're heartbroken, you know, like it's just, you can't even imagine what they must be going through. Like it's...
So how do you think, the two of you, how will you approach this? Like, will you be talking to your kids and instilling into them that there are only two sexes, and if they're told otherwise?
My daughter's 18 months old, and I started saying it already. I mean, I don't think I need to push it, because I think I'm not going to be sending her to school while this is... I don't see it ending anytime soon, to put it that way.
And that makes it hard, because that's where you socially, you know, kids go to learn socialisation.
I know.
And to keep them back from that affects their development as well. But, you know, what do? It's not as bad as what they could be exposed to. It makes it so hard.
Yeah. The thought of her getting this into her head, and then it makes me feel like, oh, am I just being paranoid? But I think by now there must be hundreds of thousands of parents out there who are watching their children being taken down this path, and it, like you say, Nerissa, it's just unbelievable to think about how that must feel, to see your own child being just...
It devastates.
Not only psychologically harmed, but physically as well.
Yeah, and you're trying to stop that from happening, and you're persecuted, you're punished, and that bond, you know, like you look at all those cases where children have been removed from their parents because
Yeah.
they didn't affirm this imagined, made up gender identity, because they wanted to help the child to recognize and accept their biological sex, which we know from all of the studies, if allowed to go through natural puberty unhindered, then 85% plus of these gender confused kids desist and recognize their natural biological sex again. Like if they're allowed to go through natural puberty, that's the key.
Yeah.
And
And
instead they're saying that puberty needs to be medicalized, and it's a medical condition, it's pathologized.
Because if they go through puberty, it totally destroys the illusion. So they want to stop puberty because it's valuable to the ideology, not to, and then they can say, oh, look, they all 10 years later, they're identifying as the opposite sex. Well, they were never given the opportunity to recover from it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Think about that. They're stopping puberty.
It's criminal.
Think about the kind of people that want to stop puberty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes it feels like a just too big of a task.
Think about the politicians that are pushing this. Whoever thought we'd have politicians at the state, federal and local government level that are all pushing this? And they know, they can't say they don't know. They know the dangers. But
look at the latest one that's just come out. Greens MP, Jonathan Davis.
Yeah.
Pedophile.
Been raping underage boys. Of course, it's reported as engaging in inappropriate sexual relations.
And he's the one
Insane.
He was the one on the megaphone at the Kelly J Let Women Speak event in Canberra, abusing women. He was up there with a megaphone.
I didn't.
It's for these men, just completely self-interest. So there was a Greens member that reported him to the party 4 years ago. They did nothing about it. These 15 and 17-year-old boys that he's been having these relations with, they're underage. Or has he sexually abused other children as well? So if it's the same ones, that he's a pedophile.
And is it any wonder that he's was one of the main advocates for lowering the voting age, for instance? Because they want to lower the age of consent, lower the age so that children can consent.
Yeah.
They can consent to adult sex. They want access to children. Yeah.
They actually say it's child abuse not to allow a child to have a sexual relationship with an adult. So I'm not saying the Greens said that, but it's been, that's what a number of these people like Peter Tatchell and all that, and you read up on it, and that's what they say. And it's only a criminal act because we've made it a criminal act.
Michael Foucault, I think, talks about that too, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so sickening.
Yeah. How do you think we can stop it? Because this is unsustainable, and 99% of the population, when they hear about it, will agree that this is inappropriate.
Yeah.
Just
depraved
shit. So what do you think the answer is? To just keep talking, keep getting out there? I mean,
it's all about
it. Feels like you. What was that, Sue?
It's all about education. It's feet on the ground, talking to people. I can't see any other way because we've got the media blackout. So the only way to do it, and that's what those two mothers were doing in Victoria. But our hate laws here in Queensland come into effect soon because they've been passed, and it will be illegal for us to do that sort of thing. So what do we do in the face of that? We can't just sit back and go, well, what do you do? They've criminalised. They can't talk.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, education and also voting. We have to vote this Labor government out. And again, that's educating the public about what the Labor government is doing and has done to women's rights and the rights of the child.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And we know the Liberals...
difficult when they've criminalised that activity.
Yeah, we know the Liberals generally, there may be some that agree with it. I mean, Victorian Liberals are a lost cause at this stage, but who knows if that John Pizzuto is chucked out, whether or not there'll be a lot of braver Liberal politicians. But in Queensland, not one of them voted for sex self-ID. You know, if they're the ones that have to make the move, we really need them to step up. Surely there's the Liberal Party politicians aren't, you know, when they find out, or if they already know that the children are being targeted like this. I mean, any decent person that's got children or not would think this is just completely and utterly wrong.
But like we said, it's all packaged up so nicely. So like if you're reading through the BU stuff that I was talking about before, it actually starts off quite good, and it's talking about you know, in a early learning setting, ensuring that you're not reinforcing sexist stereotypes, so if there's a child, a boy child's playing with a doll, and a girl child might say he can't play with that because he can't play with dolls, and you know, then to question why can't he play with the doll? Oh, because he's a boy. You know, boys and girls can play with dolls. You know, that's great learning. And yes, feminists like us agree 100%. We want to abolish the gender stereotypes and the harmful labeling of anyone in society. But then in the next breath, it goes on to talk about a child may identify as cisgender or transgender or non-binary. And you're just like, sorry, what? Hang on. What?
Yeah.
Wait, back it up a bit. But if you only sort of gloss the surface and you're thinking, oh yeah, you know, you don't want to be forcing boys to play with trucks and girls to play with dolls or whatever, you think, yeah, I agree with that. But if you just dig a little bit deeper, that's exactly what gender ideology is reinforcing.
Yeah.
Because if a kid just...
Yeah.
No.
I noticed with the link, Leah, that you sent through, that where it says that it may be illegal if they didn't.
Yeah.
So the childcare centres are being told that if they don't follow this, it's illegal is the word that was used.
Yeah, I saw that too. But I mean, it is, because in law in Australia, gender identity is a protected characteristic.
Yeah, but the teaching of but not so much that, but to teach it to these kids, it would be illegal not to. So it's so why is it illegal for them not to teach them this ideology stuff? They shouldn't be anywhere near it.
It says the same. It says identity, including body, gender, and sexuality, features prominently in the belonging, being, and becoming framework, which is the early birth to 5 years one, and it comes from Canadian researchers who suggest ample support exists within the profession's key guiding documents for gender expansive practice, or an approach to teaching children and supporting their development that both expects and sustains gender diversity. The same can be said for bodies and sexuality. Their work is focused on the Canadian early years framework, but is also applicable to our early years learning framework, even suggests that there may be legal ramifications for not doing this. So what the hell does that mean?
To me, that says unless you teach this, you're in breach.
You've got the pronoun badges, the flags, the lovely bright colours that are so appealing to children. It's just obscene.
Yeah,
obscene. And I just like you say, it's not surprising anymore, but I still do get shocked.
Yeah.
I just think
It's just an incessant, unrelenting onslaught on the normal, accepted social norms of a healthy society. It's just constant, and the attack, as we know, on us as women, and our rights to our language and our spaces and our everything
that it means to be a woman is just being taken over by men.
But not just that, as a mother, it's also taken from you. They take control of your children as well. So it's just, sometimes you just think, I'm just speechless with what goes on, and the depth of depravity, the fact that it's so widely supported by government and, those medical professionals that are just absolute creeps because all they think about is the bottom line, how much money they're going to make. There's no morality, there's no ethics. They don't care what they're doing to these kids, or
it feels like they're just taking away the rights of a whole country's population, and all we become is tax-paying idiots, basically, to fund this bigger agenda to access children. I feel like I need to go and get my tinfoil hat. But that's how it makes me feel. But I don't think that's a conspiracy. I think that's what's going on.
Well, you just, how long have you been looking at this, Nerissa?
Since about 2018. 19.
I only learned about it in early 2022. I had no idea. What about you, Leah?
Yeah.
2016.
When you were exposed to it at uni. So if by now, if you didn't think it was tinfoil, it's not. That it's real. There's too much evidence not to know that it's real. It's just. But what does my head in is it got politicians that push it.
Yeah, but there is a backlash. The pendulum is swinging back. I can feel it.
Yeah.
It's just Australia is just in its own world. It's such a shame because Australia is such a beautiful country with so much going for it. It's just the government is.
It's the government pushing it. Yeah.
It's just so. People say that Australia is a racist country. I don't think so, but I think the sexism, the misogyny that I can see, is just out of control.
Yeah,
but we just need to keep going, I suppose.
Well, even Mr.
We had no option.
Yeah, Mr. Menno was saying about when Moira was over in England and the freedom that she had to say exactly what she wanted without repercussions, and that's true. If a woman opens her mouth in Australia, my God, the condemnation, and you got to look at, like, Kath Deves went through absolute hell last year with the federal, that woman, I don't know how she remains sane. She was just completely hammered. I mean, I was a political candidate in the same federal election with her, and I got cancelled and hammered, but nowhere to the extent that she did, because she's just incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And even now, like her voice now is so ever more important in this fight. Her article in The Spectator just recently talking about pronouns being used in the South Australian judicial system, for fuck's sake. Preferred pronouns out of respect. Just diabolical. But yeah, Kath Deves' contribution to this is so invaluable. And, now that she's obviously one of the solicitors on Sal Grover's constitutional battle, Giggle versus Tickle. Yeah, she's incredible.
Woman, her resilience, and Moira. You just got to look
because, because she's got daughters.
Yeah,
we couldn't, in 10, 20 years' time, when whatever happens, we wouldn't be able to look back and say we tried to resist this if we stayed silent.
Yeah, 100%. That's why this is important to put these out there, because it's our record of dissent.
Yeah.
And knowing that we know, we can't not say anything. We can't.
No, we need to get those politicians, we've got to get the Liberal Party to step up and realise what we know is that the majority of the public don't support it. But if the Liberals started speaking up, that would give all those people that are too afraid to say anything, that would give them licence, because there's a political party, a major political party that's actually stepping up to the plate. And
is what's happening in South Australia with the Liberals in South Australia.
Yeah.
It would be great to see more of that.
Yeah, we really need that. And I mean, obviously most of them have children. It's a human tragedy what's going on. And the ones that are really going to suffer when this is done and dusted are all those kids that have been transitioned, like Mel Jeffries. And, it's just, how can anyone look at Mel and go, this could have been stopped? Oh, no, just let it go. And that Ian Hickey on that Spotlight show. But you don't talk about the ones that, the good ones. Doesn't make any difference. It's not a necessary operation. Like, he compared it to an appendicitis. It's not an appendicitis. It's not a failing organ. And puberty is not a medical condition.
Correct. And it's the same with the application to have gender affirming care covered by Medicare. They compare gender affirming care and the radical double mastectomy that these young women are getting, which they call top surgery. They compare that to a cancer patient having to have breasts removed, or else having the genetic predisposition, the gene, to mean that they're likely going to get breast cancer. So therefore having the double mastectomy as a preventative surgery. They compared that to, it's just, like you said, it's elective surgery. It's unnecessary. There's no evidence base to support it whatsoever.
And to have it covered by Medicare so they can mutilate more bodies.
And then, like you said, Leah, we're the taxpayers funding that under Medicare.
Yeah.
Take away our rights, take away our speech, but we still pay our tax,
but we've got no say. We've got no say in any of it. And so I've actually seen posts by young girls that are waiting to have a double mastectomy, and they've actually said that they should be put at the top of the list because their situation is worse than a woman that is needing a double mastectomy because of cancer. It's like they say that the trans genocide, it's worse.
I don't really blame those girls for thinking that, because it's been common into them, for them to think that they are that. They're going to kill themselves. When you're told you're going to kill yourself a million times, you're probably going to start believing it.
That's true.
If your mental health is that fragile anyway,
I
mean, it's the worst thing you can possibly do is put that idea in someone who's already feeling very lost and troubled, to put the idea of suicide into their head.
It's like them telling them that it's a trans genocide and it's worse than Hiroshima, the Holocaust, and both world wars. What they're going through is worse than all that combined. And they keep telling them all the time it's a trans genocide. They're dangerous. If they start to believe that, and they are brainwashed, the middle-aged order gynophile's not brainwashed, it's just their sexual fetish, but these young ones, they're the ones that are going to commit the crimes. And in the US, there were statistics that I was reading the other day. So 0.6% of the population are trans-identifying, and but they make up 28% of mass shootings.
Yeah, that was Scott Nugent's.
Yeah,
I think it was
that's
Scott
right.
Nugent's.
Yeah.
Insane.
28%, and they're 0.6% of the population.
Yeah.
You put this fear into them that we're trying to kill them. So what are they going to do? They're going to try and protect themselves. And so guns
and they're also calling for them to take up arms as well, though, aren't they? They're encouraging it. They're encouraging fight back. They're encouraging arm yourself.
That's like saying to a paranoid schizophrenic, people are out to get you. Arm yourself.
Exactly. You're affirming a delusion. Like crazy times. Anyway, Nerissa, thanks for coming to talk to us.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having me. Love your work.
Voice. And me and Sue aren't going to be shutting up anytime soon.
Yeah, those hate speech laws aren't going to stop us.
Hell no.
Yeah. No.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
No
worries.
Bye.
Keep up the good work. Bye.
Bye.